I'm so sorry. There's nothing I can do about it right now. Sister-in-law stood before me, her apology heartfelt. How did it come to this? The story traces back about a week. My name is Clara. My husband Osmond runs a hot dog stand. We first met at his stand near the train station, where I would often stop after work. He struck up a conversation and soon we were dating. After a few years, we tied the knot. The first time I met sister-in-law, who now stood before me with regret in her eyes, was at a family gathering. Nice to meet you. I'm dating your brother. Please treat me well. I greeted her. Nice to meet you too. I'm not perfect, but I'm his sister, so please be kind, she replied, with a hint of apprehension in her voice. Back then, I thought a kind-hearted person had entered our lives. My brother runs a fairly large company, and he often praised sister-in-law, crediting her for supporting him. He called her a dependable and excellent wife. However, a few years into their marriage, sister-in-law's true colors started to emerge. Every time she visited her parents' house, she would flaunt new designer items, and her social media feed overflowed with photos from lavish hotel openings and designer cosmetics. We overlooked it initially, as long as it didn't directly affect us, but over time, sister-in-law began making persistent demands. Sister-in-law, why don't you comment on my social media? I asked once. I just browse, she replied. Did you have any photos to post? I pressed. No, I use social media to gather information and see what others are posting, she explained. Wouldn't it be nice to comment occasionally? Maybe if I feel like it, she retorted. Please just comment once, I urged. I'm not doing it just because you tell me to. Her constant badgering irritated me, so I began to ignore her. After a while, she muttered in a subdued voice, "You're such a buzzkill, so boring." From then on, I made a conscious effort to minimize unnecessary interactions with sister-in-law. I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't inclined towards closeness. However, she seemed impervious to hints and continued to ask for comments multiple times. Each time, I ignored her until she finally gave up on her requests. Since our encounters were rare, I had hoped to enjoy my time without unnecessary drama. But every time I visited my parents' house, our paths seemed to cross, leaving me feeling disheartened. This happened yet again during my recent trip home. Sister-in-law, what do you think of this bag? It's cute, isn't it? It's from the brand new collection, I asked, trying to make conversation. I'm not interested in that sort of thing, she replied flatly. Come on, don't all girls love brand name bags? I prodded, sensing her disappointment in my lack of enthusiasm. I genuinely had no interest in brands or expensive accessories, which seemed to irk her more than expected. You don't have to pretend to be unjealous. Just admit it. I can even give you my old one, she insisted. I was genuinely disinterested and beginning to feel annoyed. I really have no interest. Besides, I think those things are best left to those who appreciate them, I replied calmly. What's your problem? Stop being so stubborn, she retorted, clearly frustrated with my indifference. She stormed off without waiting for my brother to return. When he arrived home, I confronted him about her behavior. Hey, can you talk to your wife? I began. What happened? He asked, concerned. She made a comment earlier that felt really demeaning to me, and it made me uncomfortable, I explained. What did she say? He inquired. I recounted her persistent demands for compliments and her patronizing offers like giving me her old things. Lately, she's been treated like a CEO's wife by her housewife friends, and I think it's gone to her head. I'll definitely talk to her about it, he assured me. But let's handle this delicately. I don't want us to fight, but I understand if we can't be close. Let's keep our relationship strictly as relatives. I nodded, relieved that he understood my concerns. I understand. I'm sorry for the trouble, I replied. It's not your fault, but she's your wife. Just remember, it reflects on you, he acknowledged. I understand, he affirmed. After that, we maintained a peaceful distance, only crossing paths on occasions like weddings or funerals. Each time, I kept my distance and she seemed to respect that, which put me at ease. However, during the greetings at my wedding, I was reminded that people seldom change. As my husband and I hosted a family introduction dinner with my brother, sister-in-law, our parents, and my husband's parents, even in such a formal setting, sister-in-law managed to slip up. By the way, what kind of work do you do? Sister-in-law asked. I run a modest hot dog stand, I replied. Oh really? Is it part of a chain? She inquired. No, it's an independent shop. Just a simple hot dog stand. Nothing more. I explained. Come on, she interjected. But it's just a hot dog stand. Even if it were a chain manager's position, it's still respectable, I countered. At that moment, my brother looked visibly unsettled, and our parents stared at sister-in-law in disbelief. Are you leaving now? I asked, trying to change the subject. Yeah, I think I'll head home, she replied casually. Oh, come on. I was hoping to hear more about the hot dogs, I said, trying to lighten the mood. I was seething with anger at sister-in-law's mocking tone. Listen, I've been wanting to say this for a while. Could you please stop mocking people in the way you speak? I confronted her. I'm not doing that, she retorted defensively. Yes, you are. It's really hurtful, I insisted. Well, it seems I'm not wanted here, so I'll take my leave, she said dismissively, clicking her heels as she exited. I continued to glare at her retreating figure. I'm sorry, my brother apologized, sensing the tension. I apologize. She wasn't always like this, my brother said, trying to smooth over the awkward moment. It's fine. I know my job is an easy target for jokes, so I'm okay with it, I replied calmly. I'm truly sorry, sister-in-law added sincerely. After that, there were a few more apologies exchanged, and the meal proceeded without further tension once my brother's family had left. Even after the meal, I continued to apologize to my husband, though he remained unfazed with his easygoing demeanor. When I visited my brother's house alone to deliver the wedding invitations, sister-in-law commented, Ella, a hot dog vendor, but you're holding such a grand event. What does being a hot dog vendor have to do with anything? Can you not afford a change of attire? I retorted, slightly taken aback by her remark. If you have complaints, then don't bother coming, I warned her firmly. I don't mind coming, but really, she replied, her tone dripping with mockery. If her disrespectful attitude persisted, I was prepared to tell both of them they were not obligated to attend the ceremony. However, owing to certain circumstances with my brother, I reluctantly allowed them to come under the condition that sister-in-law would not approach me at all. And so, the wedding day arrived. The venue was spacious and the ceremony proceeded smoothly. Whether out of a semblance of decency or due to a reprimand from my brother, sister-in-law behaved herself during the ceremony, and it concluded without incident. As the reception wound down and we engaged in casual conversation, that's when it happened. As the crowd gathered around the bride and groom's seats, a tipsy sister-in-law staggered over. She downed the champagne in her hand and loudly declared, a hot dog vendor's wife is destined for a low-life existence, right? The room fell into a stunned silence at her words. Oblivious to the shocked reactions around her, sister-in-law continued to belittle my husband. Suddenly, from across the room where he had been chatting, my brother stormed over and shouted, Hey, what are you saying? But it's true, isn't it? Being married to a hot dog vendor is pretty low, isn't it? He spends his days covered in grease behind a food stand. That's how it seems, she argued defensively. Just stop it. Why are you defending her? It's the truth, isn't it? Sister-in-law retorted, her voice edged with defiance. My husband stood abruptly. That's enough, he declared firmly. What? Sister-in-law exclaimed, taken aback. In that tense moment, my brother swiftly addressed the gathering. I apologize sincerely on behalf of my wife, he announced. No need. I understand your family's perspective quite well, I interjected, trying to diffuse the escalating tension. What? What's going on? Sister-in-law demanded, confused. Listen, the guests here are investors in brother's company or business partners, my husband explained urgently. What have you done? I added, alarmed by the potential consequences of her outburst. But why? Why would a hot dog stand owner invite such people? They're not your typical guests, sister-in-law questioned, puzzled. Osman actually runs the hot dog stand as a side interest. He's an investor significantly wealthier than us with a prominent position. He's been investing in my company and even secured contracts because of his connections, my brother explained. He's ruined everything, sister-in-law muttered disbelievingly. No way, I replied in surprise. Yes, my husband's true identity is that of an investor. He achieved success early on and started the hot dog stand as a personal project while managing his investments through others. He has a wide network but lives modestly, eschewing extravagance. When I learned about his wealth, I admired his modest lifestyle and discerning spending habits, which influenced my decision to marry him. After that, my brother escorted sister-in-law away. and the event concluded prematurely, citing a sudden illness in the bride's family as the reason. Naturally, any planned after-parties were canceled. Sister-in-law was summoned to a family meeting soon after. The outcome was the apology mentioned earlier. Following the meeting, the consensus among the family was to avoid future interactions whenever sister-in-law was present. While they respected my brother's work, they feared potential complications if sister-in-law remained involved. I agree with that. It became quite a big issue, someone commented solemnly. I deeply regret my actions. Please forgive me, sister-in-law pleaded. I need to protect the company and I can't continue like this. I want a divorce, my brother declared firmly. You think you can ruin someone's wedding and then expect forgiveness? That's impossible, another family member interjected. If you're going to be here, I can't set foot in this house again. I want a divorce. I can't either. I can't be associated with someone who thinks like that, I asserted firmly. The family's stance was unanimous. Having sister-in-law involved was untenable. If anyone had taken her side, it would have jeopardized future relations. Fortunately, everyone agreed. The costs will be covered, including cancellation fees for the after-party and reception, and gifts will be returned, someone explained. Your family has been informed. Please pack up and leave by this weekend, my brother instructed firmly. What? Why should we have to pay for all of that? Sister-in-law protested. Because it's necessary. Due to your actions, we couldn't proceed with the after-party or reception, and we had to return the gifts, my brother responded sternly. We're all business owners here, so the amount of money involved is significant. If you doubt it, take a look at the documented figures, my brother explained sternly. Indeed, the sum returned was substantial. Given that most attendees were business owners who had invested in my husband's company, their gifts were quite generous. The total amounted to about $50,000. To be honest, I had hoped this money could cover all the wedding expenses, but that's not the case, my brother added somberly. A sister-in-law broke into tears upon seeing the recorded amount, but I remained indifferent to her distress. You should have conducted yourself better, I remarked firmly. But I didn't know, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. You shouldn't look down on people just because you didn't know, and you shouldn't judge people by their profession, I replied firmly. But you said you were a hot dog vendor, she protested. I didn't say anything wrong. I was going to explain later, but you're the one who made a fuss, I countered. You didn't even tell me about the people at the venue. You were planning to be mean from the start, she accused. If you were truly involved in my brother's work, you would have recognized those faces. There was no need to spell it out for you. Besides, if you were really friends with me, you'd know who was coming and what positions they hold, I explained. Exactly, my brother chimed in. She only supported me at first. After that, she seemed more focused on lunches, dinners, practice sessions, and having fun with the president's wives. So she didn't recognize brother's business partners, nor did she understand his current work engagements, I remarked. If she had been truly involved with brother's work, she would have known who his business partners were and supported him as an entrepreneur's wife, my brother added with a hint of disappointment. However, sister-in-law interjected, I'll make an effort to build relationships with other women. That's good. Building relationships is important, I replied, but remember, part of your role also involves supporting brother in his professional endeavors, including networking with influential figures. She appeared indifferent to our advice. Despite our attempts to explain, sister-in-law maintained a stance of self-reliance, insisting, I'm doing my best in my own way. It seemed my brother had resigned himself to this situation. You're the one who ended the friendship, I asserted. I can't tolerate your sarcastic comments. They're demeaning. Besides, it's not appropriate to disparage the groom at a wedding. That's just common courtesy, I continued firmly. Sister-in-law sobbed uncontrollably, but her emotional outburst didn't affect me. I'm sorry, but could you please take her away? She's causing a disturbance, I requested calmly. I apologize, but my daughter's parents are coming to pick her up today, my brother responded. What's this? You never intended to forgive her in the first place, I questioned, surprised. Of course not. I've been overlooking your excessive spending. You should be thankful for that, my brother retorted. Or should I charge you the $80,000 for the overspending? It won't be covered otherwise, he added sternly. Internally, I couldn't help but think so. Sister-in-law's extravagant spending had stretched us beyond our means. Yet a weight lifted off my shoulders knowing I wouldn't have to deal with her anymore. Shortly after, sister-in-law's parents arrived and attempted to apologize profusely at the door. I cut them off, saying, "I don't need that, and I have no intention of forgiving her. Please take her away quickly." Her parents simply nodded, murmuring apologies, and escorted sister-in-law out. Later, I received a direct message from sister-in-law on social media. "I will never forgive you for ruining my glamorous life as a CEO's wife. Since you are wealthy, pay me $100,000 as compensation or arrange for me to meet brother so I can forgive him and we can remarry. I'll consider forgiving you if you make up for the birthdays and anniversaries you've missed." Quietly, I forwarded the message to my brother. From what I gathered, sister-in-law appeared to be living alone in a small apartment after being expelled from her family home. It seemed that after the divorce, she had signed a contract stipulating the hefty penalty if she attempted to contact me or my brother. Upon violating this agreement, sister-in-law was slapped with an $8 million bill. She attempted to persuade her parents to cover the cost, but they were a typical middle-class family and couldn't afford such a sum, even though she was their only daughter. They insisted she handle it herself and claimed ignorance of the situation, forcing her out of their home. At my brother's urging, I monitored sister-in-law's activities for a while. However, whether due to running out of photos or her friends learning about the divorce, sister-in-law's social media account disappeared before long. As for me, I'm happily working alongside my husband. The job is challenging as it's new, but interacting with my husband's investment clients and students after work brings me joy. We lead a modest life together since my husband isn't keen on extravagance. The other day, I spotted someone who resembled sister-in-law. She looked drastically different from her once well-kept appearance, dressed in baggy old sweatpants and cheap slippers while carrying shopping bags. I can't help but think if only she had heeded people's advice, things wouldn't have turned out like this. I mused briefly, but I quickly dismissed the thought, realizing it was futile to dwell on her situation.